question is no longer whether Ruben Amorim can succeed, but whether his 3-4-3 formation is doomed from the start. If giants like Mourinho and Van Gaal could not revive the theatre of dreams, what chance does Amorim have with a formation that already looks fatally flawed?
Is that the problem is with the ball. I think we lose the ball too fast. We win the ball, we lose the ball. And you cannot press high all the time. So you have to keep the ball.
This is a system that has been exposed in England countless times. And unless he adapts, history is preparing to swallow him whole. Ruben Amorim did not arrive at Manchester United empty-handed. He carried with him the reputation of a prodigy, a man who had reshaped Portuguese football with his daring ideas and tactical bravery. At Sporting, his 3-4-3 system turned doubters into believers, producing trophies, restoring identity, and elevating a club that had been stuck in mediocrity. His teams pressed high, attacked with intensity, and used youthful energy to overwhelm opponents who could not match their tempo. For a time, Amorim was not just successful, he was untouchable, the golden boy of Portuguese coaching. At Old Trafford, Ruben Amorim sought to transplant the same system into the Premier League, believing that what worked in Lisbon would bring revival in Manchester. But the problem with philosophies is that they cannot exist in isolation. Football does not live in theory. It lives in match days, in the unforgiving grind of a league where flaws are magnified under the brightest lights. And this is the biggest stage of them all. What made Ruben Amorim fearless in Portugal is making him look stubborn in England. Arsenal is not Amadora. Fulham is not a Famalicão. At the heart of Amorim's philosophy lies its greatest weakness.
No, Nuz in Lich are out. They cannot play this game. Josh recover, Andre recover. They are option for this game. We'll see.
The two-man midfield. In theory, it should provide balance, with one player shielding the defence while the other pushes forward to create. But in practice, it has become Manchester United's undoing. The club splashed more than £200 million to strengthen the attack, bringing in Matheus Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo and Benjamin Šeško. Yet in all that spending, they neglected the most important area of all, central midfield. Now the squad is loaded with number 10s, players who thrive between the lines, but offer little balance deeper in the pitch. Ahmad, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha and Mbeumo can all play in the role behind the striker, but none of them can provide the stability United so desperately need in midfield. Ruben Amorim has been playing a midfield two of Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes. Ugarte and Kobbie Mainoo relegated to the bench. Let's be honest here, Casemiro is past his best, and alongside him is Bruno Fernandes, a footballer of brilliance but not of balance. Bruno thrives when given freedom, when he is allowed to drift, risk, and weave chances in the final third. But when chained inside a two-man pivot, his instincts betray him. He roams too high, leaves too much space behind, and exposes Casemiro to impossible demands. Together they are not partners. They are mismatched puzzle pieces forced into the wrong picture. The result is a midfield that cannot control games, cannot dictate tempo, and cannot withstand the storm of a league where most opponents fight with three men in the centre. Fulham revealed this flaw with brutal clarity. Their trio of midfielders dominated United's pair, suffocating Bruno and dragging Casemiro into spaces he could not cover. Afterwards, the Fulham boss, Marco Silva, called United predictable. And he was right. Everyone knows where the weakness lies, and everyone knows how to exploit it. In modern football, especially in the Premier League, glory is never found in a midfield outnumbered from the start. And yet Ruben Amorim insists on fighting a war with weapons that no longer work. It would be unfair to say that the 3-4-3 can never work. Football history offers rare moments when the system thrived, when it seemed to hold the perfect balance between defence and attack. Antonio Conte proved it at Chelsea in 2016-17 season. After a shaky start to the season, he switched to the shape and unleashed a 13-match winning streak that carried Chelsea to the Premier League title. It wasn't just the formation that worked. It was the perfect alignment of players, roles, and discipline. Conte had the unstoppable energy of Kante in midfield, a player who could cover the ground of two men. He had Victor Moses and Marcos Alonso in the form of their careers, wingbacks who could run endlessly, defend relentlessly, and attack with precision. And at the top, he had Diego Costa, a striker who was more than a finisher, a warrior who bullied defenders, pinned back backlines, and scored the goals that made Conte's system ruthless. Conte's 3-4-3 was not simply a tactical experiment. It was a system perfectly married to the players at his disposal. Every piece fit, and every player bought into the vision. The midfield wasn't overrun because Kante and Nemanja Matic complemented each other like hammer and shield. The wingbacks weren't exposed because they had the athleticism and tactical intelligence to dominate their flanks for 90 minutes. And the attack thrived because Costa terrorized centre-backs, while Hazard and Pedro floated into the spaces he created. Conte's Chelsea were not predictable. They were devastatingly efficient, a machine that only broke down when rivals eventually solved its patterns. For one season, the 3-4-3 was unstoppable, but that success has proven the exception, not the rule. Even Conte himself could not sustain it long-term, and Thomas Tuchel's Champions League winning Chelsea eventually abandoned the shape too. The system demands perfection, flawless midfield balance, tireless wingbacks, and a striker who can both score and fight defenders on his own. The moment any of those ingredients weaken, the shape collapses under pressure. And that is the problem facing Ruben Amorim. He does not have a Kante in midfield. He does not have wingbacks of Alonso's caliber. He does not have a Costa leading the line with blood and fire. He does not have a squad built for the demands of a relentless 3-4-3. What worked for Conte at Chelsea is precisely what makes Amorim's version look so hopeless at United. The cracks in Ruben Amorim's United are not subtle, they are glaring. 7 wins from 29 Premier League matches is not a slow start. It is a collapse unfolding in real time. That win rate places him statistically as the worst manager in Manchester United's Premier League history. At this rate, he is not going to last the season. The results alone are damning, but what makes them worse is the way they arrive. United don't just lose, they look predictable while doing so. Opponents know exactly how they will set up, where the gaps will appear, and how to take advantage. In a league defined by tactical flexibility, Amorim has chosen rigidity, and that rigidity is born of stubbornness. Amorim refuses to adapt, even when the flaws in his system are obvious. He continues to force Bruno Fernandes into a role that strips him of his creativity, tethering him too deep in midfield, where his instincts betray the team. He continues to ask Casemiro, with slowing legs, to cover ground that even a prime Casemiro would struggle to control. He continues to demand wingbacks, who are both defenders and attackers, even though United do not possess the kind of athletes Conte once had at Chelsea. Most damningly, he continues to believe that a two-man midfield can survive in the Premier League, despite being overrun in match after match. At Sporting, his stubbornness looked like belief. At United, it looks like denial. This is not evolution. This is not identity. This is the slow death of a team being sacrificed to the ego of a system. For the fans, the picture is even bleaker. Ruben Amorim's reign feels like yet another false dawn. They were told his philosophy would bring clarity, but instead, it has delivered chaos. They were promised attacking football, but instead they see predictable patterns that opponents dismantle with ease. They were promised revival, but the record books already mark his start as one of the worst in Premier League history. In a club that measures itself against glory, survival cannot be the standard. Yet that is exactly what Amorim has reduced United to. Fighting to survive games, fighting to avoid embarrassment, fighting without belief. And as always at Manchester United, pressure does not wait. This is a club where failure is magnified and time runs shorter than anywhere else. Amorim does not just stand on shaky ground, he stands on a cliff edge. If nothing changes, he is not only risking his own job, he is dragging Manchester United deeper into the wilderness they have been lost in since Ferguson's departure. History has shown us why Conte's Chelsea thrived, because every piece fit perfectly. Kante's legs in midfield, Alonso and Moses on the flanks, Costa a relentless force up front. It was a rare moment when the 3-4-3 became unstoppable, but even then, it did not last. Football evolves too quickly, and systems built on rigidity eventually break. Sporting Clube de Portugal abandoned Amorim's model soon after he left, proof that even his greatest triumph was not eternal. The Premier League is less forgiving still. If you stand still, you get left behind. And so the question that hangs over Manchester United is no longer whether Amorim can succeed. It is whether he can change. Can he abandon the rigidity that has defined him, or will he cling to it until it destroys him? If he refuses to adapt, he will not only be remembered as the man who brought the fatal flaw to Old Trafford, he risks being remembered as the worst manager in Manchester United's Premier League history.